All right. So now we'll go through the opposite example. We'll start with a situation where the market price is low and the existing firms are losing money, and then some of them will want to get out. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go through a few steps here. First, show a market equilibrium such that the market price is less than the break-even price. So, okay, first, let's just label the break-even price. So that's here. So we'll draw a straight line across both diagrams. All right, so what it says again is show a market equilibrium such that the market price, so in other words, the equilibrium between the supply curve and the demand curve, has to be less than this break-even price. So what you want to draw over here then is the supply and demand curve where the equilibrium is below that line. Doesn't matter where over here, but as long as the equilibrium is below that line. Okay, so that is Q1. And then for the price, what we want to do is we have to show this price going over to the individual firm. So we want to draw this line going all the way over here. P1. Okay. Make sure that you've drawn it so that this price does cross the marginal cost over here. If your price is too low, it won't work out. You have to have it so that your price is crossing the MC curve over here, which is what we want to show next then. So for the existing firms in this market, at that price, they will produce this quantity, so little q1. And then they're losing money though, because at that quantity, the average cost is up here. Okay, so the rectangle that's formed between that average cost and the price, that will be the loss. Okay, so now what's going to happen in the long run? So the existing firms are losing money. Some of them will stick it out, but some of them will say, let's go produce something else. Right? So as some of the firms decide to exit the market, then the market supply will decrease. And as the market supply decreases, the price will go up. As the price goes up, the amount of money that the firms are losing will get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So supply will decrease until that price goes back to the break-even point where the existing firms will be breaking even again, and then they will stay in the market. Okay, so what we want to do is show the new supply curve in the market crossing the demand curve right there at the break-even price. Colors. It's green. Okay, so that's S2. Oops, I can't. It's hard to see it. S2. Okay, so then in the market, there will be a smaller quantity, Q2. I'll just make a note here. So market supply decreases. So I'll label the break-even price here. I'll just label it as P2. I'll put green on it. The next page here is about what I was just talking about before the break, and that firms in a market, when the market price is at the break-even price, they will have an accounting profit. They just will not have an economic profit. So suppose the firm is making revenue of $100,000 and they have explicit costs of $60,000, zero depreciation. So the accounting profit, remember, is just the revenue minus the explicit costs and depreciation, but there isn't any. So the accounting profit would be $40,000. Now suppose that they could make $40,000 being a taxi driver instead. So that is what kind of cost? Implicit, yep. And so once we subtract that, then they have no economic profit. So they're not any better off than they would be if they were being a taxi driver. So in perfectly competitive markets, you will not be any better off than you would be doing your next option, whatever that might be. So, okay, so yeah, so for my parents, well, I said at first they grew red delicious apples, right? But then the price was low, so they were incurring losses. They exited that market. They cut down those trees. They planted Gala apple trees because at the time Gala apples were like new. They were the new variety of apple. They were really popular and the price was high. So for a while then they were making profits again, but other farmers started planting the Gala apple trees as well because they were profitable. And then as the market supply of Gala apples increased, the price of the Gala apples went down, and so then they weren't making any money off of those anymore. So then they cut down some of those trees and they planted pink lady apples. Do you guys know pink lady apples? Maybe? Okay, good. They're kind of a yellowy pink color. Anyway, they're very crunchy. They're like a bit more sour, a bit more crunchy. Anyway, they were very good. And at the time, the price was high. And at first, my parents were the only ones in town with pink lady apple trees. But then other farmers started planting pink lady apples, and then the market supply increased, and the price started going down. So this is why you don't want to be a farmer. Or in general, you just don't want to be in a perfectly competitive market if you want to make more money anyway. And so anyway, so my parents are now retired, so they don't care anymore. But for you guys, now it's not just about being a farmer though. It's about any kind of a market that's perfectly competitive. So even if you don't have your own business and you are just working, you don't want to be in a labor market that's perfectly competitive, which is why you guys are all here, right? If you didn't go to university, you would have your high school degree. And you would be part of a large supply of people who have a high school degree. You would not have much influence about the wage you're paid then, right? Probably you'd get a minimum wage job. So in a labor market for unskilled workers with a low education, then the market is like a perfectly competitive market, and you would be like price takers because you would not be able to control the price that you're paid. You could not say to your employer, I want to get paid more money, because your employer would say, no, I'll just find somebody else. Okay? But by coming to university, what you're doing is you're putting yourself into a different labor market, which is for skilled workers, where you're no longer going to be a price taker, right? The more skills you get, the more influence you will have over how much money you're going to make. Okay? So you then are making a very good choice. You're no longer going to be in a perfectly competitive labor market. Hopefully you guys will make lots and lots of money in the future, doing whatever it is you're going to do. All right, now, the last two examples here are about what will happen when demand changes. Okay, so for my parents, when they planted the Gala apple trees, at first they were making good money off of the Gala apples because Gala apples at the time were the new variety. And everybody was super excited about Gala apples because they were sweeter and tastier than the other varieties. But then another thing that happened is that over time, newer varieties are introduced. And then consumers will want the newer varieties, and then there was less demand for the Gala apples. So that also pushes the price down. So when demand in the market changes, it will push the price up or down. If it pushes the price up, then that's great. That means that the existing firms will start earning more money. But if it pushes the price down, it means that they will start to lose money. And so then what will happen is the number of firms will change. If the price has been pushed up, more firms will enter the market, pushing the price back down. If the price was pushed down, then some of the firms will leave the market, pushing the price back up. So in the short run, there will be higher or lower prices and profits or losses, but in the long run, that price will always go back to the break-even price. All right, so first, an increase in demand. So in our diagram here, we can see that the market, this is just the market diagram. Oops, there we go. The market is at the break-even price right now, but now there's going to be an increase in demand. So we want to show a new demand curve up here, D2. Then the quantity will be higher and the price will be higher. So this is now a new equilibrium, but it's only going to last in the short run because the price is higher. It means the existing firms are earning a profit, and that's going to attract new firms to the market. Okay, so that's what we'll show down in this diagram. So we went from this equilibrium here to this equilibrium here. Now the original equilibrium, I'll put an arrow there. This original equilibrium was a long-run equilibrium. Because the firms were breaking even. So that point would have lasted, except that demand shifted. So now we're at this new equilibrium here, but this one is just a short-run equilibrium. Because it won't last. And it won't last because with the high price, existing firms are earning a profit. That's going to attract new firms to the market. That will move the supply curve to the right and push the price down. And as we just went through in the last couple examples, the supply curve will shift until the price goes back to the break-even price. So we want to show the new supply curve over here where the new price will be the same as the P1. So S2, and then this one will be the new long-run equilibrium. Good. Okay, so we went from here to here, and then from here to here. And then, oh, I lost my green pen. So then the last thing here, there it is that we can show a long-run supply curve. So the long-run supply curve is just going to be these two long-run equilibriums connected. So I will use my green pen to show these connected here. So if you just connect the two long-run equilibriums, then that would be what we call the long-run supply curve. So just what will be supplied, what will be the quantity supplied in the long run. So put, oops. So long-run supply curve. Okay, so the long-run supply curve will follow, so the LRS curve follows the break-even price. Because in the long run, the firms will always just break even. So in the short run, there can be fluctuations. They can earn profits or losses in the short run, but in the long run, they will always just break even. All right. Good. Okay. So last one is the opposite, a decrease in demand. So again, we're starting here. This will be the long-run equilibrium where the firms are earning zero profit, so they're breaking even. And then something happens to decrease demand. And so that will push the price down. So demand can change for different reasons. Well, say with the Apple example, it was the introduction of new varieties, right? So when the consumers have new substitutes to choose from, then that will change demand. Or it could be a change in income, it could be a change in population, it could be a change in preferences. So one example I was thinking about for this one was bagels. Now, 20 years ago, bagels were super popular. I don't know why, but anyway, bagels were really popular and there were bagel stores everywhere. And there was one store called the Great Canadian Bagel, and it was great. It had these really big bagels and they had like 30 different flavors to choose from. And now I don't know of any bagel stores. Now what happened, I'm not sure, but I think it was the Atkins diet. Do you guys remember the Atkins diet? Probably not. Anyway, it's the first low-carb diet to become popular, and so then people on the diet weren't supposed to eat bread. So I think that was probably the cause of the death of the bagel market. But anyway, so what happened? Well, suddenly people weren't eating bread, so then less demand meant lower prices, firms were losing money, firms exited the market, and that's why we don't have any bagel stores anymore. Okay, so we'll show that then here. All right, so now this was the original equilibrium. This was a long-run equilibrium. This new one is just a short run because it won't last, right? What's going to happen now is that some of the firms will exit the market. Okay, so let's just label these again. So this one is a long-run equilibrium. This one is a short-run equilibrium. And so now what's going to happen, some of the firms will exit the market, so now supply in the market will decrease, and it will keep decreasing until the existing firms are breaking even again. So we want to show our new supply curve going through that point there at P1. So that will be the new long run equilibrium. All right. Any questions? Yeah. That would be a short run. Yeah. Yeah. So the original one is long run. So that's this one here. Those are the same. Yep, that's long run. And then these ones here with the low price will be short run. Yeah. Good. All right. So last example is a calculation example. So we have a firm in a perfectly competitive market. We've got the total cost function, the marginal cost function, we've got a market price. Okay, so first thing, the firm's average total cost function. So we want to divide the total cost function by Q. And then simplify as much as possible. So we'll break out those terms. So we've got 100 over Q plus, and then 2Q over Q will be 2, plus 0.5 Q squared divided by Q will then just be 0.5 Q. Okay, so that's the average total cost function. And then, so the firm's break-even price okay, so the break-even price, remember, is where we are, the firm is at the minimum of their average total cost function, which is where there's an equilibrium with the marginal cost. So that means that we can calculate it. So we have the marginal cost function here, and then here's our average total cost function. All right, cancels. All right. So 14 point, and I'll keep 3 decimal places here because we're not done the calculation yet. This is Q, but the question is asking for the break-even price. So now we need the price. And the price is equal to MC is equal to ATC. So what we do is we just plug this back into any of the functions, MC or ATC. And MC is an easy function, so we'll do that. So the price equals MC equals 2 plus the quantity that we just calculated. So 16.142. Okay. Now the next one, what quantity will the firm produce given the market price? So the market price was up here, $20. The firm will always produce the quantity where the price equals MC. So if the market price is 20, the MC function is 2 plus Q. All right, so then quantity would be 18. At that quantity, what will be the firm's profit? All right, now there's two formulas for profit. Either one is fine. So you can take total revenue minus total cost, or the other one that you learned earlier in the chapter, so last class we went over it, price minus ATC times the quantity. And you get the same answer either way, so you can use either one. Okay, so I'll do it both ways. So first of all, total revenue is P times Q. And so the market price is $20, and they produce 18 units, we just figured out. So 60. And then the total cost, so we can just use the total cost function. 100 plus 2Q, and Q is 18. 0.5 times 18 squared. All right, so that's 298. All right, so then the profit will be $62. And I'll just show you the other way though too, using this formula. So profit here, we take the, oh wait a minute. Actually, to do it this way, we know the price, we know the quantity, but we don't know the average total cost. So you would have to do that first. Let's draw a line. Okay, so average total cost formula, 100 over Q. Q is 18. Plus 2 plus 0.5 times 18. Okay, so that is 16.5555. So you can round up. I'll leave 3 decimal places there. All right, so now we can use the formula. So profit equals price, 20, minus average cost, times the quantity is 18. All right, but you should get the same profit. You should still get the $62. Good.